Next is about structure of categorical propositions. So structure of categorical propositions are statements that provide information about tests or classes or categories of objects. They are often represented using letters to denote classes or categories and standard forms to indicate relationships between these classes. So categorical propositions follow a specific structure known as the square of opposition, which was originally formulated by Aristotle. The square of opposition illustrates the relationship between categorical propositions in terms of their quality, that means affirmative or negative, and quantity, universal or particular. Let's delve into its structure. Quality of categorical propositions. The quality of a categorical proposition refers to whether the statement is affirmative or negative. So, an affirmative proposition asserts that a class includes at least one member. It uses the words all, every, or some. For example, all humans are mortal. A negative proposition denies that a class includes at least one member. Negative propositions use the words no or none and come in three forms. Universal negative denies that the entire class has any members. No birds are mammals. Particular affirmative. So affirms that at least one member belongs to a class. Some dogs are friendly. Then particular negative denies that at least one member belongs to a class. Some politicians are not honest. Then quantity of categorical propositions. The quantity of a categorical proposition refers to whether the statement is universal or particular. Universal propositions make claims about an entire class, either affirmatively or negatively. They use the words all or no. Particular propositions make claims about only some members of a class, either affirmatively or negatively. They use the word some. The square of opposition. The square of opposition is a visual representation of the relationship between categorical propositions. It shows how propositions related to the same subject and predicate are connected. It consists of four propositions. A. Universal affirmative. All S is P. Universal negative. No S is P. A particular affirmative. Some S is P. O. Particular negative. Some S is not P. The square indicates the following relationships. Contradictory. A and E propositions are contradictories. If one is true, the other must be false and vice versa. Then sub-contrary. I and O propositions are sub-contraries. Both can be true, but they cannot both be false. Then contrary. A and E propositions are contraries. They cannot both be true, but they can both be false. Then subalternation. A proposition implies I and E implies O. If the universal is true, the particular must also be true, but not necessarily vice versa. Then observation, conservation, and inversion. In observation, the quality of a proposition is changed from affirmative to negative or vice versa, and the predict is neglected. For example, all humans are mortal become no humans are immortal. Then conversion. In conversion, the subject and predicate of a proposition are switched. However, not all propositions can be converted. For example, all humans are mammals becomes all mammals are humans. Inversion. In inversion, the subject and predicate are switched and the quality of the proposition is also changed. For example, all humans are mortal becomes some non-mortals are non-humans. Understanding the structure of categorical propositions and their relationship is fundamental for formal logic, argument analysis, and the study of deductive reasoning. Then mood and figure. Categorical syllogisms. These are some sort of categorical syllogisms. So mood and figure in categorical syllogisms. Categorical syllogisms are forms of deductive reasoning where two premises lead to a conclusion based on the relationship between classes or categories. Mood and figure are two key elements that help analyze and categorize categorical syllogisms. So they were introduced by Aristotle and later refined by logicians to systemize and evaluate syllogistic arguments. So understanding mood and figure is crucial for the study of formal logic and argument analysis. Let's dive into this concepts. Mood refers to the arrangement of the types of categorical prepositions A, E, I, O in a syllogism. There are 64 possible moods, that 16 major moods and 48 minor moods based on the combination of these prepositions. This mood describes the quality, that means affirmative or negative, and quantity, universal or particular, of the premise in the syllogism. For example, a mood could be AEE, indicating that the first premise is an A proposition, universal affirmative, and second premise is an E, that means proposition, universal negative, and the conclusion is an E proposition. Then figure refers to the arrangement of the terms in a categorical syllogism. There are 4 possible figures, which each with a specific placement of the middle term, subject term, and predicative term in the syllogism. The placement of these terms affects the validity and soundedness of the syllogism. The 4 figures are: figure 1, the middle term is the subject of the first premise and the predictive of the second premise. Then figure 2, the middle term is the predictive of both premises. Then figure 3, the middle term is the subject of both premises. Figure 4, the middle term is the predictive of the first premise and the subject of the second premise. Then evaluating syllogisms. To evaluate the validity of a categorical syllogism, both mood and figure must be considered. A syllogism is valid if it follows one of the valid mood figures. There are valid syllogisms for each mood figure combination. A syllogism is invalid if it does not follow a valid mood figures combinations. Invalid syllogisms contain a logical error in the arrangement of terms or propositions. For example, consider the mood figures combination AE1, all humans are mortal, no goats are mortal. Therefore, no goats are human. This is a valid syllogism because it follows the correct mood figures combination. Then Venn diagrams. Venn diagrams are often used to visualize, represent the relationship between the terms in a syllogism. They can help analyze the validity of mood figure combinations by illustrating how the categories or classes relate to each other. Then Aristotle's rules. Aristotle established specific rules for valid syllogisms. These rules include the necessity of having exactly 3 terms, using each term twice, and ensuring that one premise is universal A or E. Violating these rules can result in an invalid syllogism. The 19 valid mood figure combinations. Out of the 64 possible mood figure combinations, only 19 are valid. These are the combinations that follow the rules and principles of categorical syllogisms. So here are some examples. AA1, all humans are mortal, all Greeks are humans, therefore all Greeks are mortal. Then AEE2, all mammals are animals, no birds are mammals, all mammals are animals, no birds are mammals, therefore no birds are animals. Then all cats are animals, some cats are black, therefore some black things are animals. Then practice and application. Studying mood and figure in a categorical syllogism is essential for formal logic, especially in philosophy and critical thinking. Regular practice with various mood figures, combinations, and their evaluation is crucial for mastering these concepts and analyzing deductive arguments effectively. Then conclusion. Mood and figure are fundamental concepts in the study of categorical syllogisms. They help categorize syllogisms, assess their validity, and understand the relationship between categorical propositions. A solid grasp of these concepts is essential for this study. Then formal and informal fallacies. Formal and informal fallacies. Introduction. Fallacies are errors in reasoning that can lead to invalid or unsound arguments. They are common in everyday discourse, persuasive writing, and even formal debates. Understanding fallacies is crucial for critical thinking and argument analysis. Fallacies can be categorized into 2 main subtypes, like formal and informal. Formal fallacies, also known as deductive fallacies, are errors in the logical structure of an argument that render it invalid. In formal fallacies, the conclusion does not necessarily follow from the premises, regardless of the truth or falsity of the premise. So, affirming the consequent. This fallacy occurs when one confirms the consequence of a conditional statement, assuming the truth of the antecedent. For example, if it is raining, the ground is wet. The ground is wet, therefore it's raining. Then denying the antecedent. This fallacy occurs when one denies the antecedent of a conditional statement, assuming the falsity of the consequent. For example, if it's raining, the ground is wet, it's not raining, therefore the ground is not wet. And fallacy of the undistributed middle. This fallacy arises when the middle term is a syllogism is undistributed in both premise, making the conclusion invalid. For example, all birds have feathers, all cats have whiskers, therefore all cats are birds. That doesn't make sense. Then informal fallacies. Informal fallacies, also known as ineducative fallacies, occur when there are problems with the content of the argument rather than its structure. These fallacies may affect the argument's soundness or cogency, making the conclusion less reliable. There are numerous types of informal fallacies. Here are few examples. Ad hominem. We discussed this earlier. Ad hominem. This fallacy involves attacking the person making an argument rather than addressing the argument itself. For example, don't listen to this person, he is a terrible person. But the argument is still there. You are trying to attacking the person. That is ad hominem. Ad hominem fallacy. That's a fallacy. It's a kind of error. Then straw man. Straw man. This fallacy occurs when one misinterprets or distorts an opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. For example, the opponent claims we should invest more in education, but that's just throwing money away. Straw man. An appeal to emotion. This fallacy involves manipulating the emotions of the audience to gain their support rather than presenting a rational argument. For example, support this policy, think of the children's future. Then, hasty generalization. Hasty generalization. This fallacy involves drawing a general conclusion from insufficient or unrepresentative evidence. For example, I met one rude person from that country, they must all be rude. So that's the hasty generalization. Then detection and avoidance. To detect and avoid fallacies, it's essential to critically analyze arguments, focusing on both their structure in the case of formal fallacies and content in the case of informal fallacies. So developing strong critical thinking skills and a deep understanding of logical reasoning is crucial in this regard. So real world application. Understanding fallacies is not only important for academic purpose but also for daily life. It helps individuals make better decisions, avoid being misled by fallacious arguments, and engage in more constructive and rational discourse. Formal and informal fallacies are errors in reasoning that can hinder the validity, soundness, or persuasiveness of arguments. Recognizing and avoiding these fallacies is crucial for critical thinking and effective communication in both academic and real world contexts.